Welcome back to Joshua's Magic, a channel about how the ordinary mundane world and the world of spiritual reality interconnect. Today I'm having a conversation with Douglas. He's a practicer of nonviolent communication. So I'm going to find out a little bit more about that. How's it going, Doug?
All right. Thank you for inviting me to do this, Joshua.
Thanks for agreeing. It's great to have you.
Yeah.
So people are wondering, or at least some people, what's nonviolent communication? I cannot yell at people. I cannot curse at people, right? Is that what that is? Or
Well, not necessarily, actually. Um, it's a good question. Let me just talk about me and nonviolent communication just for a moment.
okay.
I've been practicing, I've been told, I think it's going on 17 plus years. Um, Although it's hard to imagine it's that long. Uh, um, I'm not on, so you can get certified in nonviolent communication, and I'm not certified, and I'm not on a certification path, although have practiced and worked with people who are. So I want to say that anything that I say about nonviolent communication is not, quote, official. It's how I interpret it and use it and practice it. Um, it's a form of communicating and using language that was developed by Marshal Rosenberg. He says very early in his first book that there's nothing new in it. Um, um, I think that's largely accurate. It's about trying to communicate first with observation, feelings, and what he added that I think is not often talked about is needs language, and then making a request. Um, and uh, I've It's often taught sort of academically, as in learning the vocabulary of feelings and needs and speaking quote at proper NVC. And then after you've been doing that for a long time, it's like you forget all the actual language. And really, it's about not about the vocabulary, but the energy behind those
Hmm.
words that the language is trying to point to. And
So
it
you
can
learn
get
the letter of it and then you move into the spirit of it, sort of.
That's how I did it. Yes. And I think a lot of times people get confused about that. Was well said. Yeah, about trying to focus just on the letter of it. Whereas really it's not the language, it's the energy, it's the spirit of it that really matters. Um,
I mean, you could say
and
that about a lot of things and any sort of practice or, people get really obsessed about the letter of it and they kind of forget about the spirit of it.
yes, I think you can say that about a lot of things. Um, Absolutely. The the For me, it's actually so for me, I've been doing therapy for 40 plus years, and I've done a lot of. I'm sort of like a growth junkie, and I've done lot of meditation practice. Tara Brach is very big in the Washington D.C. area. Not Tara, is it Tara Brach? Had a brain freeze. And then I've done some of something called respectful confrontation. I've done something, uh, um, uh, uh, and a lot of other programs. I must be nervous because I'm having some brain freezes. I'm forgetting some things.
Well, it's all
Um,
right. It's only human. People forget.
yeah, but the work by Byron Katie has been a big influence for me. Um, and for right now, NVC is actually sort of become a meditation thing where at any given moment I am asking myself and not the other person, not someone else, what am I feeling right now? And what am I needing or wanting right now? And trying and I'm using the language and the concepts as a way of going inward and being more self-connected. Um,
So,
right now, I'm
to
okay.
ground the understanding of what it is, let's think up a scenario and how would you employ NVC in that versus, just ordinary speak?
Uh, so for
Let's say
me,
somebody, I don't know, borrowed your
well,
car and returned it half an hour late and you were upset about that. Ordinary speak, you might be like, hey, you're late with my car, I don't like that, or that's not okay. Or if you're angry, you might have even been like, you're a jerk or something. Uh, so how would you handle that in NVC? How would that differ from,
so in NVC, I would first go, I have two answers to your first question, which is how I might use this. So let's use it. Let me respond to this example. So I loaned my car and he said, and we agree that you're going to please get the car back here by 7 o'clock. And the guy shows up at 7:45
yeah.
with my car. So I might first go with the observation. Um, I thought that you had said we bring the car back at 7 and it's now 7:45. And I thought we had had an understanding and I really feel some upsetness and some anger because I thought we had had an agreement and my need for shared reality and trust really haven't been met by your returning my car later than I thought you said you were going to do. Could you tell me what you heard me say, please? Because I'm really upset about this. And so the request is you're telling me what you heard me say, and this started with the observation, which I'm hoping we both have the same observation. Sometimes people have different, go to the same movie and have different observations. But if you could at least share mine, and I expressed that the need that wasn't met was trust and shared reality. And I stayed away from, you didn't do accusation, you language.
Mhm.
I stayed away from, you're an idiot, you're an asshole, blah, blah, blah. You didn't do what you said you didn't. I stayed away from accusation and you language. And I talked about my experience, which was that I thought this happened. This is how I felt about it. And this is what I was needing. I didn't even get into the fact that I was planning to leave at a certain time and now I'm going to be late.
Mhm.
I just stayed with that fact that my need for trust and integrity and shared understanding weren't met. So one of the things that's very key in NVC is that you're constantly, what's most important is not the actual thing, but the relationship between two people. So what really matters is the two people relate and connect. And if the other person can connect to my needs, have some understanding about what my needs are, and I can have some understanding about what their needs are, there's a very good likelihood, or NVC says that we can come to some strategies that will work for both of us. Um, did that make sense? Did that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah, it made sense. Oh, we lost your
Um,
video.
say again?
Your video
Oh,
went
I
out.
don't, yeah, let me look at that. That was weird. I didn't do anything. Uh, my camera got turned off. Let me see if I can turn, oh, there we go.
All right.
Huh, my cursor wasn't even over my camera. That was weird. Okay,
Maybe it heated up and turned off.
yes, that's possible. Um, the way you had asked is the way I might use NVC in this moment is what am I feeling right now? So I had talked about I'm a little bit speeded up, a little nervous, not a whole lot, a little anxious, and I'm wanting um, harmony and safety. I have some fear of social media. I'm old. All this new stuff is scary, and I have a little bit of a need for safety, and so the way I would you try and use NVC is to connect to what I'm feeling and needing in this moment. One of the questions I had for myself is what need am I getting by doing this, by coming and doing this interview? And I tried to answer that before I showed up. Um, so um,
The needs thing is interesting. I found out about NVC from my mother, and the way I was thinking about it was more of a conflict resolution type thing. But the whole centering on your needs, I kind of didn't expect that, and I attended one of your meetings a little while ago, and that's what jumped out to me, is it the meeting very much put me into thinking about what are my needs and are they actually being met. And so that was the major thing I got about it, which was interesting. And I guess, some people are really all about their needs, but other people don't put as much attention on them. So it can be, pretty helpful in that way, like you were saying.
another word for needs is values.
Hmm.
And how much are we living our life in any given moment with what's really important to us? So, you know, and there's a wonderful exercise. I think I first did it in respectful confrontation, but I've seen it elsewhere, where you take a list of needs or values, and there can be 40 or 60 or 80 of them, and you mark, cross out the 20, you come up with 25 that are most important to you. And then you cross out you come up with 5 that are most important to you, or 10, and you come up with 4 or 5 and 3. And I've done this exercise with people who are just getting out of being in living in prisons, and uh, it's a very powerful exercise. Because the question comes up every morning, every day: are you waking up living your life according to what's most important to you?
Yeah, so there's a visioning aspect to that, that if you're clear on, well, I really value integrity, then that's going to be at the front of your mind when you're put in a situation where you might have the impulse to lie about something, you know. Whereas if you hadn't put much thought on it, yeah, you'd like to tell the truth, but then this other thing comes up and it's like, well, I'm just in this situation, and I go right to fibbing or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And so NVC at the level that I'm trying to use it and to connect to it is giving me language to try to connect with um, what's really important to me in my life, and am I being focused and grounded in that at any given moment.
So what, you talked a little bit about your backstory, but was there any major things that were going on with you that led you to NVC, or in doing NVC, helped with certain things that you were dealing with?
Um, so a meditation teacher, I was big into meditation at the time. And a meditation teacher of mine suggested I look at it. And I tried a class taught by, I looked her up the other day. She's out in California now. Taught by a woman named Inessa Love. And I asked her, is
Vanessa
love,
Love, did you say?
Inessa, I think is her first name.
Inessa.
Yeah. Anyway, I said, is Love your real last name? Or said it was perfect. Anyway, it turns out it is. Anyway, it was, for me, I didn't get the class. It was kind of boring, and you learn these rote materials. But it was a 6-week class, and each week you could borrow some of the facilities, the books and the CDs. And I borrowed some CDs from her that I brought back the following week, and I listened to one with Marshall, and he does empathy for Hitler, and
And
it was like,
Marshall is the guy who founded NBC.
yes,
Yeah. He has a few videos up on YouTube if people want to search for him. What was his last name again?
Marshal Rosenberg, and
Rosenburg,
if you
yeah.
he's a great if you want to get into NVC, you can Google Marshal Rosenberg YouTube videos is a fabulous way to get a taste of it. Um, there's also NVC Academy, which is a resource that I use. It has free stuff, has a fabulous free beginners class. And then for a monthly fee or a yearly fee, you get access to the huge library resource, and the materials and the teachers that are available are just fabulous. And anyway, yes, so I was listening to this Empathy for Hitler Marshall CD. Now, this was before the internet. And it got my attention. It was like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
Hmm.
And then I listened to another CD the next week in which he does empathy for a rapist. And in both cases, it got my attention as far as the power of what this material and this work and this way of being could be about.
Could you touch on what points he used to give you empathy for those sort of really bad people? I mean, he
Well, I
probably
don't
wouldn't
know if
say really
he,
bad people, but you know.
right, he probably wouldn't. Um, his point being that I think that empathy, uh, um, well, he didn't. I don't know if I could actually. Um, it's a powerful listen. He empathizes with the anger and the frustration and the pain that is going on for these people, and in uh, the empathy, and in each case they're somewhat different. Um, um, the idea being that every living thing does the best it can in any given moment to live. So a tree that gets planted, and grows, it may grow and block out the sun from other trees, but it's just trying to live. And the idea is that we're all at any given moment doing the best we can to try to live and take care of ourselves and survive and even perhaps do what we think is thriving. And if you recognize that every individual is doing the best they can and you can look for the life, what need of theirs they're trying to meet by any given action. Uh, so I think he, for Germans after World War One, I think he, in the empathy guesses, as I remember him, he's suggesting that the Germans had a need for respect and freedom, and a lot. There was a big pain that the Germans
Yeah, with the
suffering
whole Treaty of
after World
Versailles
War.
after World War One, the German economy and society kind of went in the crapper.
Right, and so there was a lot of struggle of and pain around that. And so he takes the guess that that's what Hitler touched into.
Mhm.
Um, I don't remember. It's interesting. The guesses for the rapist.
Mm.
It was a powerful listen.
Well, rape is supposedly about power, so you might make a similar thing, somebody who doesn't feel they have power or control in their life, and that's why they do something really bad like that.
Um, yeah, he does it. He does it in both cases. He does it with an energy,
Hmm.
and that takes you back, took me back, and had me go, "Wow, it really lands." Um, what's more important than the words we actually use, whether it's actual NVC vocabulary, feelings, or needs language, is the energy behind those words.
Hmm.
Um, and uh, it's in language by necessity is fallible. It's We're trying to use words or vocabulary to describe or express something else. So in an emotion or in feelings, we're trying to use words to try to express something that we felt sense in the body. And by its very nature, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect all the time. But you're trying to get, if two people can find the right sense of, oh, that feeling, it's more the energy at which you express it, where it comes from, uh, that is the connecting power for people, I think, is the suggestion. Sort of the story that the map is not the destination, or
Yeah.
the raft that gets you across the river is not the goal.
Well, that sort of leads me to a thought that I thought is kind of interesting about this whole thing is some of the other talks I've seen with Marshall talking about is he talks about like you said earlier, the details not being important and talking about past things aren't so important, that there's really something else more important, like you're saying, the energy or the relationship between people. And I think details matter, but they can obscure what's really important. Sometimes in very technical things, it's like, well, the details what matters. But usually in relationships, the details are like this cover for whatever's really going on.
Right. That's my experience. It's more, we say you didn't do the dishes, or you broke this, or you brought my car back late. What really matters is, you know, do you respect me? Did you honor your agreements? Do you love me? Or I feel some pain or hurt because I thought that you were leaving and not coming back, and you didn't care about. There's a need for care, and if we can get into those underlying feelings and needs, uh, we're more likely to get the needs met,
Yeah.
and we're more likely to connect to another person.
And it's not a guarantee though, right? I mean, the other person might just be like, well, I don't care about your needs or something like that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's not a guarantee. Richard, my current therapist, says I can I can either let other people define me, or I can define myself. But even if I define myself, other people may not hear it. They still may think what they want to think. But if I don't express it, I'm not giving them as much choice.
Hmm.
I'm giving,
So
yeah.
what would in another hypothetical scenario, maybe like the car thing earlier, or, almost anything else. If you've expressed it, in the sort of NVC language or in the spirit of it, and either they say, "Oh, I totally understand," and just keep doing similar stuff, or they're like, "Well, I don't care because I had to blah blah blah." What would be the NVC way of dealing with that kind of response?
Okay, so all right. I do. The idea is, so they basically, you make a request and they say no.
Hmm.
So you're
Where
making a
they say
request.
yes and then they keep reneging on it or keep doing the opposite.
Ouch. Um, I think the NVC technical response would be to try and guess at what this other person, what needs are most alive for this person. What's prompting this? Well, there are two thoughts. What's prompting this other person to continuously say one thing and do something else? And then the other question that comes up is, and a more exact example would be helpful. What needs of mine are being met by my continuing to put myself in the situation of relating to this other person?
Mhm.
So what needs of mine are getting met, whereas, I asked you to bring the car back by 7 o'clock, and you brought it back at 7:45, and you did it 3 times in a row. What needs of mine are getting met by continuing to lend you the car?
Yeah,
What's that about for me?
yeah.
Uh, um,
There's that balance in relationships of, what are you getting and what are you giving, because if you're too much trying to empathize with them, you sort of become their therapist and there's nothing in it for you. And if you're too much in it for you, then maybe you're just returning the car 45 minutes late all the time.
Um, well, we're always, whatever we do, we're always doing it for ourselves. So, particularly as adults, we're always, if I'm lending you a car, what am I doing? I'm getting something out of it. Now, a lot of people go for the NVC need of a contribution. I'm making a contribution. And I do believe that making a contribution feeds us.
Mhm.
I also tend to think that it's one of those needs that we reach for a little bit too easily. A lot of the times I'm making a contribution because I want something in return.
Mhm.
If I do this for you, then I'm hoping you'll do something for me. Could be even just love me or like me. I'm hoping that if I do this, you'll like me or you'll love me or you'll help me or whatever. But sometimes I do believe, what's that? There's one of the, so there, um, one of the core principles as I read NVC is it's always about the relationship and the connection with the other person. Um, Another way of languaging that, which I read recently and I've been trying to adjust, is something to the order of, we're trying to have a relationship with someone else so that they can give to us from their heart and that it'll be joyous, allowing someone else to to truly have the joy of giving from the heart. Um, in our culture, a lot of times we give because we want something in return. A lot of times we give because we feel there's a demand. If we don't do it, we'll pay. Um, but when you truly give from the joy of giving, that's a very special place, and it can feel really good. It can feel really juicy when you can get to that.
Yeah. What, if you're comfortable sharing, what are some experiences you've had employing NVC? I mean, you don't have to use people's names, but like some real world examples where somebody did something that upset you or whatever, and then you spoke about it in NVC terms, and then this is how they reacted, and it led to this or
Um, right. First, I'll go back to what I primarily use NVC for most of the time. First off, is with myself. Can't sleep at night. I'm restless. This happens several nights a week now. It didn't used to happen when I was a working man, because I was always tired. But I wake up and I will ask myself, what's going on?
Hmm.
What am I feeling? Can I language it? What am I wanting? And if I can connect to what I'm wanting or needing, and then what the beauty, look for the beauty of the need. I forget that teacher's name. He passed not too long ago. I can often find a sense of peace and harmony in myself and fall back asleep. So I use it right now first for self-connection. I'm going to get to your example, but first, primarily now, I'm using it most of the time in my day-to-day life for self-connection. Um, can I come up with a specific example? I have had situations, and I can't get a specific one. Years and years ago, after my real job, I had a part-time job, more full-time than part-time, at and I answered the phone for a massage school a lot, and sometimes I would get people who were very unhappy with something or other. And I would take empathy guesses for what they were feeling and what needs of theirs they were upset with. And
So you say like it sounds like, you have a lot of stress in your life or something.
oh, I remember there was a guy, he was upset and angry because he was promised that something would be mailed back to him and he hadn't got it. And I said, I'm guessing you're really angry and you really want whatever it is and you're pissed about it. I mean, it makes sense to me that you'd be pissed about it, and I don't know if I can help you or not, but I don't blame you for being angry because you haven't gotten what you said you were going to get. And they said they mailed it and you didn't get it, and you're frustrated, you don't know what to do, and you need this goddamn thing. I might have even cursed, I might not have,
Mhm.
you know. Um, come back to cursing and proper NVC language. That's a good question if you can hold that.
Okay.
Um, Another place I've attempted to use it, I
Well, how did he
find
respond to that?
eventually, it took a while. I was on the phone with him for a long time and several conversations. Eventually, he said he felt hurt, and he said, he said something like, you're good. I appreciate this. You're really, you're, his anger subsided to somewhat, and it took a week or two, but we got his issue resolved. And he expressed some appreciation for being heard and understood. Um, uh, I find that using it, the closer I am with the person, the harder it is for me to use the skill set. This is somebody I didn't know. Couldn't even picture this guy. It was easy. But with my partner, or my son, oh my God, it's very hard to reach for the skill. And it's taken a while, but I have learned to do it some of the time with some partners. And it's a little bit of a work, but when it happens, it's very connecting with partners when they feel heard and it's kind of sweet. Doesn't always last. It might bring harmony for a couple hours or a day, and then they're off to some other tangent. But um, and it can be challenging.
Well, at least it's a step in that direction. And if you
Yeah,
take
and
enough of those steps, you sort of build a habit.
yes, that's well said. Thank you. Um, it can be very hard when you're acknowledging someone else's reality, and you were there, and it's not your reality.
Hmm.
So you said that I was nasty and ugly. And I was like, I didn't say that. But you can't, that's not empathy. That's defending yourself. And the answer, so the empathy is when you heard me say that you were nasty and ugly, even though I didn't say that, but that's what they heard. That's what they're hearing in there. You got really angry because you wanted to be whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and when finally they get that, yeah, yeah, there's a certain connection. But sometimes it can be hard when your reality of the situation is different than theirs, your experience. So Marshall says the observation is what a camera would record. Unfortunately, a lot of times there's no camera there.
Hmm.
So something happens between two people, and one person heard you called me an idiot, and the other person says, I thought that what happened really made me angry, and I didn't understand why you did it. And it made no sense to me. That's not calling you an idiot, but if
Yeah.
they heard that they were called an idiot, there's no camera there to record it. It's hard.
Yeah.
Um, so I have used it in personal situations, but it took years to learn to do that, and with mixed results. I'm still learning. Um,
You mentioned you wanted to talk more about NVC language and cursing.
Yeah, you said in the beginning, um, this is a very challenging concept and one that I struggle with. That you don't want to use you want to you don't want to be calling people names and stuff like that or something like that. That could be violent. That would be
Mhm.
violent language. You're an idiot. You know you weren't looking at what you did and you didn't care about me and you were out running around and you brought the car back late again because you're selfish and you'd only think about yourself and you have no care for me and you go out and you take my car and you make an agreement, you say you'll do something, and then you do whatever the hell you want because you're only concerned about yourself. So there's a
So,
lot of
so the
names.
violence in NVC, it's not cursing at people necessarily, but it's pointing the finger. Is that the idea?
It's pointing a finger and it could be cursing or it could be name calling. It could, yes, it's accusatory. You're not talking about yourself and your experience. You're
Hmm.
labeling. The
It's sort of a
labeling,
transgression on at least their perception of things. And that's the sort of violence in it, I guess.
labeling and judging someone else
Mm,
versus loving them as a human being who's doing the best they can. Okay, you're a thief, you're a criminal, you're a bastard. You hurt me, you robbed from me, you hit me, you only, well, that whoever that person is doing the best they can, and my guess is they may be under a lot of pain or a lot of frustration or hunger or confusion or anger themselves, and they're lashing out. Who knows? But when I label them a criminal, a bastard, a thief, a murderer. When I label them, I as and I'm not, and I'm judging them, and I'm not acknowledging them as a human being that's doing the best they can to meet their needs, and trying to connect to them on the human level. Then that's violence.
mm.
Um, and it's hard, it can be hard to do with Marshall used to talk. There was some story he said that he was giving empathy to some woman who had been in a war situation, I think, and had been horribly treated, molested, etc. And he would be giving her empathy and for every 20 or 25 minutes, he would say, pause and go outside in the hallway and give himself empathy
Mm.
because he would be so upset and so shaken by the stories she was taking. And then he would come back in and he'd say, okay, let me listen, keep, I'm now resourced and I can hear what your situation was. But eh,
Yeah, that's something I need to work on before you can have empathy for others, you have to have it for yourself. You have to meet your needs. It's like the principle they talk about in lifeguarding. Like make sure you're safe and then you can rescue, other people. Because if you drown trying to rescue somebody, who's gonna rescue anybody?
if you're in the airplane and you put the oxygen mask on
Um,
yourself first and then you
yeah,
put it on your child. Most people would want to put it on their child first,
yeah,
but then they fall out unconscious and neither one of them gets an oxygen mask.
yeah.
Yes, self-empathy is sort of the first key.
Well, it's also a
And
little overlaid with rational self-interest. When you say selfishness, it's usually a bad connotation. And the idea is that you've got desires for things that hurt other people or that are more than you actually need. But, rational self-interest is taking into account what you actually need and where you actually are. And, also the wider world, like, you might ask yourself, how can I get my needs met in a way that doesn't infringe on other people's needs or values or boundaries?
how much is enough?
Mhm.
You know, how much money, water, food, security do we need so that we're safe? And versus, taking from the others, taking from enough so that others, yeah, considering
And
others.
also, like you were saying before about thinking of your values, right? Like what are my values? Do I have a value for integrity and honesty or compassion towards others? And am I pursuing my needs in a way that's valuing that also, that integrity and compassion? And because you can think so much about one thing and lose sight of the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So how self-connected are you to what matters to you at any given moment? Yeah.
It's a good takeaway. Do you have any other insights you think are worth pointing out?
Um, so I just want to touch on this one point that is very hard for me, is that NVC, as I understand it, and I struggle with this part of it, is that you're constantly honest about yourself and who you are and what's alive for you. And that means that if I'm having a connection or a relationship or I'm talking to somebody and they're boring the heck out of me and I'm not focused and I'm off drifting somewhere else and I'm thinking about the idea of be honest would be to say, hey, I'm really not connecting with you. I want to be relating to you, but this is not connecting. This isn't meeting my need. I need to go do something else, or can we shift the subject? But the idea is constantly, if we bring our true selves to someone else, that's the biggest gift we can give.
I think people have a lot of trouble with that. I think that might be one of the most difficult things for people. I'd be hard pressed to think of a single person who would be that upfront about things. And you're really showing somebody respect by communicating that. But a lot of people might get offended by it. Um, and so most
Mhm.
people, just lie about it or pretend or fib or whatever.
I
And
do.
yeah, and the alternative is to have kind of a not real relationship or a partially disingenuous relationship. And it's
Yes.
tough because you either don't want to hurt the other person's feelings or you don't want to be in an uncomfortable situation yourself. And yeah, I think you really hit on something there. That's a big thing for people to deal with.
So NVC is about being honest and bringing your real self, because that's the biggest thing you can give is your honest heart and self. And that means that if it's not alive for you, and what that might mean is that some of the time you don't speak skillfully, but you're speaking honestly. And people will get offended, may get offended, or they may choose to be bothered by your language versus could they go, oh man, they're speaking in such hard language. I wonder what's going on for them versus, oh, this is an affront to me.
Hmm.
Whenever we speak, any word we say, we're trying to communicate something and connect to something.
Well, I end my interviews with a question. I guess a little bit like James Lipton. When you reach heaven, what would you like God to have say to you? No, 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 that's not the question though. Uh,
Oh,
no, I'm not stealing from James
that's a
Lipton.
good question.
I
That's
have
a
my own question. Um, well, if you want to answer that, we'll do that one
no.
first.
I want to take it away and think
Okay.
about it, but
All right. Um, if you could tune into your intuition for a moment and take a minute if you need to and reach into that and pull down whatever message you intuit is meant for the audience to hear. And it doesn't have to be about NVC. It could be, or it could be about something else.
what would that message be?
Yeah. the message from your intuition that's meant today to come out to the audience?
Well, I don't know about the
The
audience,
message, thought,
but I
idea.
will, yeah, I will say that for me, I think I do believe that I find relationships and connections very important and really something that feeds me. I struggle with depression and happiness and what matters to me. I'm retired. What motivates me to get up in the morning? And connection and relationships is very big. Um, and I'm moving into the place where I think the closest thing as humans that we have to a superpower is love. And the more I can be loving with myself, to myself, and for others, the more, unfinished sentence.
Well, thanks, Doug. It's been a great conversation. And where do you want to direct people to any resources or your group?
The NVC Academy is a fabulous resource. I think it's Baba Society. I said the name earlier
Mhm.
before the if I could email you
Sure,
what
I'll put
one or
some
two
links in
other
the
things.
description.
And Googling NVC Marshal Rosenberg if you want to find out more about it. I have a practice group that I facilitate, and I'm about to start to go to another one. I work with, even though I'm not living there now, I work with a group called Tri NVC from the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill Triangle. And we have stuff on Meetup where you can find, I think there are currently three or four, one offering once a week, and then there are 2 or 3 monthly offerings.
If people want to find your group specifically, how can they
They
participate?
can find it on Meetup.
Meetup, and it's called.
NVC Triangle. It's under the NVC
Okay.
It's under the Tri NVC Meetup umbrella.
Okay, we'll probably have a link to that in the description also. All
Okay.
right, and well,
Thank
everybody, if
you.
you made it this far, I assume you liked the video, so please leave a like on it and subscribe if you'd like more. And if you think this message would help anybody, share it with them. Look forward to hear any comments or questions in the links below. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.